Well, hello and welcome to the August astrology forecast. Today I'll share tips for navigating the major aspects, including declination aspects. I'll also share some dates for timing important actions. Well, at least one. Check out the accompanying blog post on Astrology University for a full list of the major aspects and dates. If you're brand new to declination and you just want to know what it is, check out my YouTube video, What is Declination? Alright, with that, let's get started. Wow, there's a lot to talk about this month. We have Mercury Retrograde, the first direct hit of the Jupiter-Saturn square, which is going to color the next few months, and two T-squares, one of them that's pretty dramatic.
Why, God, why?
Let's start with Mercury Retrograde, which is already in the shadow period as August kicks off, and it gets going officially with the station retrograde at 4 degrees Virgo on August 4th. Dane Rudyard taught us to look at Mercury Retrograde in the context of its full cycle with the Sun. So that tells us that at the station retrograde, it's time for us to slow down and reflect with all things Mercury, which is in part about our thinking process. We benefit at this time from looking back over the last 3 months. What ideas have you been pursuing? How were you communicating? Did you have any big communication breakdowns or snafus or breakthroughs? What can you learn from thinking about those now? Did you embark on any new thought journeys, and where did they take you? As the retrograde kicks off, go into sorting and analyzing mode, especially while Mercury's in Virgo in those first few days. What ideas do you want to keep? What do you want to let go of? Work on clearing out your email inbox or get through some of that clutter on your desk. This isn't the time yet for new tasks because you're preparing the space for those. And the turning point is at the inferior conjunction of the Sun on August 18th. Mercury retrogrades into Leo on August 14th, so this Cazimi conjunction with the Sun on the 18th takes place in Leo. Rudyard thought of this as a seed moment when Mercury's receiving a new transmission from the Sun that takes into account where you've been and where you're headed. Now, if you've done some digesting and integrating work up to this point, you're now ready to receive your new Mercury transmission. This is also a time when you might notice a shift in the retrograde energy. You might see some reversals around this time, where you thought you were headed at the beginning of the retrograde, now you're not so sure, or you're at least sure that that's not where you're headed. You might change direction, or you might pick up some info you were missing. Now move slowly and carefully from here, but after the 18th, Mercury's new cycle with the Sun has begun. Mercury stations direct at 21 Leo on August 28th, and that's Mercury's stepping out onto the stage moment. Some new Mercury adventure lies ahead, and while you might not be clear about what that is just yet, you're ready to move forward. But let's rewind a little bit because there's some major road bumps on the way to this moment. This month, you'll notice we've fully left behind the Jupiter-Uranus energy that was coloring the first part of this year. In fact, I'm sure you felt that shift in full form in July, and boy was it a big shift. In a dream last night, I was thinking about Jupiter in Gemini, and yes, when you do astrology this much, you dream about it. And I thought of the phrase, the opportunity in the pivot. Now, did any of you notice a big pivot last month? Right as Mars entered Gemini and joined Jupiter, President Biden announced that he wouldn't be pursuing re-election and endorsed Kamala Harris as his successor. Now, that's a big pivot. True to the vibe of Mars moving out of Taurus, which remember slows it down, and into Gemini, which speeds things up, things moved really fast for the new Harris campaign. Now, Harris has Gemini rising, and she's currently experiencing transiting Uranus conjunct her midheaven ruler, Jupiter. This transit is correlating quite well with a big shakeup and a new opportunity for her related to her career and mission. I just love it when the astrology makes it really simple for us to decipher the message. Now, by the time the election rolls around, Jupiter will be near the conjunction to her ascendant. Another phrase about Jupiter and Gemini that I wrote down for my dream last night and want to share with you is ask for the opportunity. The message here is that if we don't ask, we can't get it. Some opportunities are handed to us. Well, that's one form of Jupiter, but many opportunities are waiting for us to make the first move. So while Jupiter's in Gemini, ask around, gather info related to your biggest dreams for your future, and ask for the opportunity when that makes sense. When a planet's in Gemini, there's information we either need to share or gather. Jupiter asks us to imagine what's possible. And in Gemini, it's pretty near impossible to just pick one thing. Those born with Jupiter in Gemini can shift their vision over time, searching for meaning through several sources, and they're meant to do that. But they do tend to resist committing to just one of them. This is is one way that the old teachings about Jupiter having some trouble in Gemini might have some weight, but it's a specific kind of trouble, and it's one that we can become conscious of so that we can work with it and even draw out its gifts. Now, Jupiter in Gemini does have its challenges. I've sure noticed that myself in the form of having my energy scattered into several different directions as I pursue my own vision for what's possible right now. And when a sign gets out of balance due to that planet's emphasis, some of the antidote can be found in the opposite sign. So that means Sagittarius. Now right now, we don't have any major planets in Sagittarius helping us activate that energy. And that means we have to do it manually, so to speak. We have to intentionally remind ourselves of the Sagittarius message when we're getting pulled in too many Gemini directions in a way that's causing stress. In Gemini, we can get caught up in the immediate situation. In response, Sagittarius says, step back and remember the bigger picture. What's the big goal? What's the overall meaning here? Take some of the info you've been gathering, Gemini, and it's probably a lot right now, and spend a little time cultivating understanding. Look for the patterns in the facts and turn some of that into meaning. Now, Jupiter's still in Gemini, so there's more fact gathering to do and more talking to others to share what you know. So remember, this little bit of Sagittarius awareness is just there to bring us into balance. We're not meant to go fully into Jupiter in Sagittarius. That's not where Jupiter is right now. So the message is a little will go a long way here. Going in another direction, Gemini can be amoral and might make excuses to justify negative behaviors, where Sagittarius asks us to remember our ethics and principles. Well, that sounds like a great reminder for all of us right now. Well, all of this is setting the stage for this first pass of the square between Jupiter and Saturn, which is in play right now and is exact for the first time on August 19th. This aspect can have us feeling like our faith is being tested. Saturn asks, how bad do you really want this? And how tired are you willing to get in order to make it happen? Jupiter gets us excited about possibility, but on a bad day, Saturn might say to us, you don't really think you can do that, do you? On these really bad days, we might give up before we should. This square is asking us to get real about our hopes and dreams. What can we actually accomplish? And what do we have time for? There's no way we can have everything that Gemini is going to put on Jupiter's menu right now. So pick your top 3. I mean, let's not ask Gemini to just pick one.
Let me think. What do I want? What do I want?
We can talk more about this Jupiter-Saturn square over the next few months, but let's add in all of the other players to this T-square that's going to form. Mars is going to be applying to conjunct Jupiter this month, which, by the way, is generally from around August 1st to 18th. And Mars is just going to egg Jupiter on. Go, 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 you can do it.
You can do anything! The world is yours!
When Mars is with Jupiter, we push ourselves past our limits. We bite off more than we can chew. But on the flip side, Mars applying to Jupiter can also give us the energy that we need to take on more than we're usually able to. Saturn's here to remind us that we all have limits though. Burn the midnight oil to reach your goals, sure, but don't push past the 7 or 8 hours of sleep that most of us need to stay healthy. In other words, say yes, but choose what you're saying yes to wisely. This aspect also means that some folks are going to say no to us. Some of us are going to feel emboldened to hit the gas, and then we're going to meet a big stop sign. In these moments, we just have to ask, what's blocking me? And what do I need to get around that block? What do I need to take stock of or have a conversation with? Meanwhile, some of us will be playing Saturn, asking others to slow down.
No. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
When Venus comes into this mix and completes the T-square by opposition with Saturn and a square with that Mars-Jupiter conjunction, there's an added resource for connection and softening available, but it's probably going to feel like some effort to get to. Saturn might seem to be blocking access to some of that Venus sweetness. T-squares ask a lot from us, but if we rise to the challenge, great things tend to come out of our efforts. This T-square will probably be the most dramatic from around August 14th to 18th, but then on August 19th, the moon jumps in to form a second T-square with the full moon in Aquarius opposite the sun and Mercury in Virgo, and all of them square Uranus. And this is at the same time that other T-square is still in range but on its way out. This is one of those days where there's so much to experience and interact with that we can just aim to do our best and then save trying to integrate or understand what's happening for later. Mercury's still going to be retrograde, but it's just past the inferior conjunction, so when combined with the full moon, which tends to illuminate the issues, this feels like a burst of clarity amongst this whole dynamic. So maybe there is a little bit of clarity, if not understanding. And with Uranus in this mix, maybe also some liberatory or disruptive energy too. There's so much going on politically in the US and other countries that I'm sure we're going to see some major sparks flying. You don't need astrology to predict that. And maybe we'll even see some more curveballs. And in the midst of that, I just want to take a moment here to offer wishes for peace and safety for all of those caught up in the crossfires of the terrible wars that are also happening, because these energies are also going to be at play there. Well, with that, let me just shift and point out a couple of declination highlights this month. We start the month with the moon out of bounds in Gemini and Cancer from August 1st to 3rd. Then again from August 14th to 18th, while the moon is out of bounds in Sagittarius and Capricorn, and once more at the end of the month from August 27th to 31st, again in Gemini and Cancer. These moon out of bounds dates are times to pay attention to your emotional responses. We can go all in emotionally on these dates, for better or worse. So these out of bounds periods can help us get to know where our extremes are, so that we can then learn to ride those waves skillfully. And this is especially true for those of you with your natal moon in one of these signs, because you're getting these out of bounds contacts every month right now. Mars makes a parallel to Jupiter starting August 10th, which remains in range through the conjunction. So we can't underestimate this Mars-Jupiter energy this month, because remember, the strongest aspect is formed when two planets are parallel and conjunct at the same time. For those of you in an adversarial relationship who also have the mutable degrees of, let's say, 13 to 18 highlighted in your natal chart, we need to pay really close attention. This is you if you have 13 to 18 Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, or Virgo. This Mars-Jupiter aspect and that T-square I was just talking about are going to directly impact your chart. This might take the form of a burst of exciting energy that's available to you, which you can then channel in your role as a formidable opponent if you're in that kind of adversarial relationship. But remember my earlier comment about ethics? Hold a positive moral center. Use this Mars for good, to make positive strides forward, or to defend your own territory, or come to the defense of those in need, or to push forward your highest vision of potential. As you might imagine, the two main players on the US political stage have important planets at these degrees, with Harris having her Uranus-Pluto-Venus conjunction between 13 and 17 Virgo, and Trump having his natal Uranus at 17 Gemini, trine Jupiter at 17 Libra. Now in Mercury news, Mercury will form two contraparallels to Saturn while it's retrograde, first on August 4th, and then August 14th. These feel like some additional slowdowns or necessary blocks for Mercury, and they figure into the part of the retrograde that has to do with digesting and assimilation. Also, every Mercury retrograde comes with Mercury sort of slowing down from our perspective, so that slow speed equates to the quality of slowness that we experience, and Saturn's just going to accentuate that here. Saturn here could alert us to what needs to be limited or stopped before we can move forward. The month ends with Venus opposite and contraparallel Neptune, and this suggests the need for awareness around romantic idealization. Have we imagined an ideal that was a little too perfect to bring into form in this very imperfect world? And now that we see that, do we feel let down or disappointed? The trick is to not give in to disillusionment, but instead to use any feeling of letdown to remind you of the real complexity of life, and to come into deeper acceptance with what is, while still holding the dream of what could be. Now shifting to electional astrology news, and by that I mean dates for taking action this month, I'm going to recommend that you hold off on any really big, important new starts if possible. During the waxing moon period, there really aren't any dates that I can wholeheartedly recommend. There will be some slightly better days in September and October, but I want to give you a heads up too, if you're planning ahead, especially for something big, that Mars retrograde is coming our way in December and January, followed right up with a Venus retrograde taking us through March of 2025. Whole time period from December through March is kind of like a timeout from most big new projects. So keep that in mind as you make your plans. For actions that involve wrapping things up or endings this month, there's one date that has a little bit of positive flow, and that's on August 25th with the moon in Taurus making a trine to Venus. Now there's complexity in this chart, including some dynamic change, but again, for something that's coming to a close, there's a little bit of a soft landing worked into the mix here, especially if you accentuate the moon in the chart you're creating. Now before I go, I want to remind you that we're now in our once a year open registration period for our astrologer diploma program at Astrology University. Through August 24th, you can sign up to join us and you'll get all 9 courses of the first year of the program for the price of 8. And you'll also get to start the courses at the same time as a new group of students who you're going to build community with over your time together. Each course comes with 3 or 4 live Q&A sessions held weekly, so you have plenty of opportunity to integrate what you're learning as you go, to ask questions, and you have the chance to talk in person with world-class astrologers like Kelly Surtees, Mark Jones, Stephen Forrest, Jessica Murray, and Karen Hamaker-Zontak, just to name a few. Our program's designed to help you build confidence as you learn with an applied approach framework that's been successful for many of our amazing graduates. Our building block approach to teaching students astrology means that you don't get weighed down with too much information too soon, and that you have support to sort it out when you're right there at the edge of growth with your learning experience. Visit astrologyuniversity.com/program to learn more. Now, if you'd like to chat with somebody to find out if the program is right for you in your specific circumstance, reach out to our help team and they'll get you set up with a free advising session with me. And as always, visit our calendar of events for upcoming webinars like Pluto and Myth and Psyche with Jason Hawley. All right, well that takes me to the end of this month's forecast. I hope you're able to make good use of this month's planetary energies, and until next time, take good care.